Got the Wholesome One on the line. Please check out his YouTube channel, The Wholesome One, HOLSUM and the number one, HOLSUM and the number one. That's it right there. Talking Miami football over on his channel, and we do it right here at MarkRogersTV, the voice of college football. I'm in the midst of releasing my schedule previews and record projections. I'm done with the Big Ten, making my way through the SEC, and have a whole lot of other good content coming your way. Here are the win totals according to Vegas and College Football News. So in the Coastal Division, Caesars Sportsbook says Duke 5.5. College Football News says they're going to go 6-6. Georgia Tech, Vegas has them winning 3. So that's the over/under for Georgia Tech. That's what they did last year. I would think that they would. I would go out there.
I'd give them 5.
I'd have to go out there and look at their schedule, but I gotta think. I know that they played Georgia non-conference, so that's almost an automatic loss. But I gotta think with 4 non-conference games that they got to be playing enough group of 5 teams and FCS teams to get a couple wins. And if they win 1 or 2 in conference, that be worth a couple bucks to lay on Georgia Tech winning 4 games.
Mm-hmm. That's tough, man.
As we mentioned, Miami at 9. The college football win projection for College Football News is 7.5. I don't know how they're projecting 7.5 wins. I don't know how you do that. There are no ties in college football. But anyway, North Carolina, Vegas says 8.5. It's College Football News that only has them with 6.5 wins. Okay. They do have a difficult non-conference schedule with Central Florida and with Auburn.
Oh, man. When do they play Auburn?
They play both of them. They play them back-to-back, weeks 1 and 2.
I mean, hey, I still say that North Carolina over the, as we say in the Hurricane fan base and on my channel, we say the Roaring 20s, and it's kind of dorky, but whatever. in the 2020s, we think that North Carolina is going to be our biggest problem in the ACC Coastal. Shout out to Dante Colon. He was the one that came up with it, and we ran with it together on the channel. But I believe, and I have a lot of people that have come on and agreed with me, I believe that Georgia Tech, number 2, but number 1 is going to be North Carolina. The recruiting base for both of those programs, the upgrading coaching on both sides, and the aggression that both of those coaches have shown. And, you know, Mac Brown is one heck of a recruiter. I mean, you look across what he's doing right now, keeping the Carolina talent in Carolina, most likely the North Carolina guys. A lot of high 4- and 5-star guys are now wanting to be Tar Heels. So, you know, we'll see. And we have to see them every single year in and year out. So I think the 2 teams that are going to be the closest to fighting us off for the ACC Coastal will be UNC and GT.
College Football News tells us that Vegas has Pitt projected at 6.5 wins. Their total is 7, so Pitt at 7-5, pretty typical Pitt season. Virginia obviously coming off the division championship in which they went 8-4.
8-4, yep.
Vegas has them projected at 6.5 wins. Of course, they lose Price Perkins at quarterback. The projection from College Football News is 8-4. Virginia Tech went 8-4 last year. The win projection from Vegas is 8 again. College Football News says 8. And then if you head out to the Atlantic Division, Boston College win projection according to Vegas is 5. Boston College has been winning their 6-6, 7-5 seasons, but of course they're changing head coaches. The win projection from College Football News for BC is 5. Clemson's got to go perfect if you're going to win money against Vegas, because Vegas says they're going to win 11.5, meaning, again, they've got to go 12-0 if you say that you're going to take the over. Otherwise, you're finding a loss for Clemson somewhere. They've got Florida State and South Carolina, and I don't know who. Notre Dame. They've got a trip to Notre Dame in early November. That would be their biggest challenge on paper, at least.
And, you know, those teams that play each other, you know, of course, we look at Miami with North Carolina, Georgia Tech, Duke, Virginia Tech, you know, teams that on paper we should beat. Well, they know us. They know our roster. They know our coaches, we play each other every single year. The same thing happens on the Atlantic side. I mean, you look at early on that Louisville game, they were in that game, and eventually it got bad, but they fought and kicked Clemson in the teeth. NC State for a long time was a big thorn in the powerhouses of Tallahassee and Clemson over the previous decade. So the 2010s, NC State, if you went in there and played a night game, it wasn't looking too good for you and your program and on that side, on the Atlantic side. So those teams will fight, but Clemson is just on a completely different level, man. But hopefully Miami gets there again.
As we mentioned, Florida State 7.5, according to Vegas. Louisville 7.5, coming off a 7-5 season. North Carolina State. Now they're usually going 7-5, 8-4. That's pretty much North Carolina State's MO, but they fell to 1-7 in the ACC and 4-8 last year. So Vegas has them projected at 4.5. College Football News. This is a big departure here. They've got North Carolina State bouncing back at 7.5. Syracuse, odd that Dino Babers took over, had a couple big wins against Virginia Tech and Syracuse, but only went 4-8 the first 2 years, and then he had a big 9-3, 10-3 with a bowl win. Then they slumped back to 5-7 last year. Vegas has them winning 5.5, and Wake Forest. I tell you, people make fun of Wake Forest, and they seem to be the team that, when I talk to guests from other conferences, other teams that don't follow the ACC and don't really know what's going on at all, and I don't call them out, but when they point to the ACC struggles and reputation currently as being down, the first school that flies out of their mouth is always Wake Forest. Oh, who's going to win anything out of Wake Forest? They like make a joke out of Wake Forest, and if I take the time, I let them know actually Wake Forest has been a good football team.
Yeah.
They're not great. They're not great, but they're going 8-4, 7-5 every year and winning bowl games. Wake Forest is not the program to point to as the laughingstock of the ACC. They've been good for the last 3 or 4 years.
One of the teams that was something, you have your people have their SEC and Big Ten biases. I don't know if that's because of CBS or ESPN or whatever. But, I look at teams like Vanderbilt in the SEC to where just geographically and academic issues and how strenuous and hard it is to get certain players to go there and players to stick and who they have to play week in and week out. I'll put Wake Forest and Vanderbilt kind of in that same category to where they're such good academic institutions. And then they still have to go and play some of these big state power schools. It's not the easiest to do, man. And I tell you what, Vanderbilt would be a tough job. Wake Forest would also be a tough job as a coach. But, respect to them. They got to line up and play football too.
Yeah. Wake Forest went 8-4 last year, lost a bowl game by 1 score to Michigan State. Year before, they went 6-6 regular season, beat Memphis in a bowl game. Year before that, in 2017, they were 7-5 in the regular season. Then they beat Texas A&M in a bowl game. I remember that game really well, 55-52 game. Year before that, they were 6-6, and then they beat Temple in the Military Bowl. They've been really good since Dave Clawson took over and went 3-9 his first 2 years, and then turned them around. So they're winning 7-8 games and going to bowl games.
I hope that this gets I would have to say for me and my fans, I can't speak for the whole University of Miami football fans, but the 2 teams I talk about on our schedule, I know Dante asked where our 5 losses. 2 of them that I'm very nervous in is Wake Forest and North Carolina. And everybody always says, we get North Carolina. But why Wake Forest? I'm like, man, listen, they are coaching well over there. They're usually every 3 or 4 years they have like an older team to where they can really go scrap for scrap. And the last time we played them in 2013, another game I was at, it was a dogfight all the way to the end, and it was right before the Tallahassee game. So we were 6-0 at that time, and they were like 3-3.
They went 4-8 that year. You beat them 24-21.
Yep, it was a dogfight. That was the game that Denzel Perryman made ESPN for picking up their running back and slamming him. It was crazy how he hit him pretty hard. He went viral for how hard he hit that dude.
I get intrigued in games like this when it's a Wake Forest, when it's a Northwestern, when it's a school like that is undermanned talent-wise, but they're well coached, they're smart, they know what they're doing, and they go up against a superior foe. And you know that it's either, you can tell within maybe the first quarter of the game whether it's going to be a game in which they've got everything working for them, that they've figured it out where they can stay in the game. They're going to limit the possessions. They're going to run the play clock. They're going to do all those things that they need to do. And they figured a few things out that they're going to hang in the game. And it's going to be some ugly, like 19-17 game in which they can hang in there, or the talent gap's just too great and they're just overmatched that day and they just can't make it happen. And, it's like 44-7.
Right.
If you look at Wake Forest last year, basically every game they played was close because that's how they play, except Clemson beat them 52-3. And it was one of those games they just, couldn't hang.
Right.
But otherwise, regardless of who they're playing, they beat North Carolina by 6. They beat Boston College by 3. They lost to Louisville by 3. They beat Florida State by 2. They beat Duke by 12.
And then a team that we all agree is very comparable to Miami and Tallahassee, they beat them. So that's what I'm saying. And we have to go there. 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to either be a Thursday or Friday night game. I don't know. I do not know.
All right, wholesome one. Or you're going to be playing them at noon on Saturday, probably.
I mean, that would work in our favor, but
be an ACC network game at noon.
Because every year we have one of the ACC gives us. It's usually either Vatech when we play them in their stadium. They usually give us that Thursday night type of prime time look, and then sometimes they give us like that wonky game that no one's really watching, and they put it on a Thursday night. So that's the reason why I said maybe a Thursday, Friday night versus Wake Forest. Not that it would be a big game, but the ACC has those weird games like that.
Sure.